Hello again. My name is Liam, and you're on Office Hours with the Mad Professor. I'm sitting here with Conor McGarry, and we were just talking about a few issues here about natural and unnatural hierarchies and, estate tax and a whole bunch of other issues. So I decided we should record this. So where were we? We were talking about the difference between natural and unnatural hierarchies.
Yeah.
What did that mean?
I mean, for me, because it's the notion, because natural hierarchy, because humans based off of psychology, tend to look, because based we're social animals, we tend to look for a role, something to fill up, and we could gauge, okay, that guy, put him in command, put him in charge here, or social situations,
Right,
I'm backing off,
So this came out of, we were talking about animal psychology actually to begin with here, and I think the conversation all started when we watched two of my cats, Socrates and Minerva here, sort of facing off against each other and kind of like backing down, and I was explaining a bit about the way that cats, while naturally kind of like solitary predators, do actually involve in kind of like a dance of dominance, a kind of like a hierarchical competition when they're sort of put together in social circumstances. They kind of like try to figure out who should be really in charge. And that basic dynamic is more pronounced in many ways amongst more explicitly social animals like humans or dogs or other kinds of like pack-oriented animals where people naturally self-select into different groups. They either assert themselves as a leader or people look for a leader.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing, like, if you work in business, you work, like, in a work environment or in the military, like, there's always, like, the idea of natural leaders. Like, you could train people technically, but, like, some people just have the innate ability based off their psychology, personality, values, whatever. Right. Some people naturally fit better in certain roles, like, than others. Like, you may, for example, are probably not a good follower, per se.
I'm probably a terrible follower in general.
But yeah,
I'm very critical of authority in general. So you wouldn't really want wouldn't really want me in those kind of situations. Usually, I'd be too insubordinate. That sort of
too
situation.
confrontational. Yeah,
right. I mean, but I'm also not good for those kind of like collective organizations anyway.
Yeah.
Whether I wouldn't necessarily want to be a leader in the military per se. Although if forced into that sort of situation, I would probably stand out more as somebody you would choose for that because it's simply a more natural environment for me.
Yeah.
But people always look for that. You try to find people who fit into certain roles. Many people wouldn't put themselves forward for a promotion into things like that, or wouldn't want to be, or you wouldn't pick somebody out for a natural role.
But others could actually gauge it.
And there's plenty of places where people can be trained for different roles there, but people also do naturally seek things out. Yes, you can encourage leadership. You can teach people certain skills of leadership and encourage them to be better leaders. And I think in most cases we really should. They're fantastic skills. They help with self-confidence and everything else. But it is simply a fact that many people do not seek those kind of roles naturally. Yeah. We do naturally self-select and find a place where we're more comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, just because you even seek something, or you feel like you feel like a good role for it, you actually may or may not actually have the personality, the values, the mindset for it. Just because you have the ambition for it, it's like actually, like for example, let's say you want to be promoted up or whatever, or you want to run for a certain office. Right. If you don't already have the certain value set, the basic, like I want to be there, but others can still see and tell. Yeah, I mean,
I have certain reservations about this person. I'm not sure if they should be in charge. Yeah,
but going back to also, it's like, I'm good. I'm good. I don't want to run for, but like you should do that. You should try to put the application in or try to run. Like, and most people tell you that they're like, you yourself don't think you could do it, but others still see it in you. So it's kind of the exact opposite. Yeah,
you can see, sometimes we can identify a natural leader. You can see within a certain crowd of people or a certain group of friends that somebody can be, you want to encourage that in them. I follow you, man. I mean, and you kind of like push that person into those leadership roles. Other people, do transparently seek power. They chase after it. They want that, but they might not be the person you'd want to follow in the first place. They might not have the right kind of psychology. You can see, this person's a little sketchy. They would just be like abusing people if they were in power,
or they're just incompetent, or they could be ignorant, arrogant, or they're actually, that guy is too Machiavellian for me. Like,
and there's a lot of people who really overcompensate too. You can see this a lot in the sort of like strutting or preening kind of sort of behaviors people get themselves into, the kind of chest thumping stuff, where you kind of get up and you're like, yeah, man, let's go. I can take you. Let's do this thing. And with some people, there's something behind that. In many cases, when somebody is standing up like that, they're really kind of masking their own sort of insecurities, that they don't feel in control in the situation. They don't feel that they have enough control over it, so they're trying to overcompensate by that, by engaging in a very overt sort of dance of dominance.
But in a way, though, they usually those people know, like, I can't actually win this fight, but depending on the person, they may know they actually can't win, or they think they can. Yeah. But for me, if I know, like, I don't think I can. I'm gonna like try to bullshit my way through it as best I can, because you're trying to get out of it. Or for example, it's like, I mean, this doesn't really apply to you, but like, let's say they tell you have a bear come at you, or you see it, you try to make yourself look bigger. You make noise. Yeah. You're trying to, and that bear, because it doesn't really know you, doesn't get the. It's like, okay. Back off.
Yeah, the bear, straight up.
But you're putting up a mask.
Straight up, the bear wins. Bear versus human, bear's always going to win, with no weapons there. But if you can intimidate the rival, if you can puff yourself up a bit, if you can scream and whatnot, and they don't know enough about who you are, and they aren't a good enough judge of character, then you can intimidate your way out of certain situations. And a lot of people do that. They try to use bravado to intimidate their way out of a situation to overcompensate.
Bilbo Baggins.
What happens? What happens when you have somebody posturing like that, facing off with somebody who is actually very confident in themselves, though? Or
I mean, because for me, I feel like that person, like, from my experience, because I deal with, like, I'm a security supervisor, so I deal with a lot of that kind of, like, macho type, these intoxicated, drunk guys, usually young guys, my age or younger, who think they can, and usually someone that's trying to put that bravado up, they're trying to prove something to you, like, and they feel threatened. You feel like you're threatening them by saying.
Any kind of criticism is immediately seen as a
threat. Criticism,
yeah.
But at the same time, though, like, they feel like you're stepping down them, and there's sort of like this sort of, and I think it's not even just a male thing, or a young guy thing, but they, by you like stopping that, they get hostile.
Right.
And then when you keep like reinforcing and you're keeping you're cool, you're calm, you're being professional, you're being self-confident, the guy just keeps escalating. To me, that's usually a sign of either some sort of like this person's hardwired wrong, or like just personality, like, which personality does not necessarily mean you're crazy or whatever. Just some people are natural hotheads than others.
Yeah, some people are naturally a bit more passionate than others, right?
And some people are just stupid, testosterone-filled dudes. And it's like, and that is the bro mentality.
To be fair, men are more prone to this sort of behavior than women are. Yeah. There's no way around the fact that testosterone does increase aggression levels. Yeah. And that younger males frequently have higher testosterone levels and are also more prone to reacting on the basis of the testosterone levels, because you don't have the faster connections in the brain. If you want to make a connection there to basic neurology, it's not really until 25 or 30 that enough of the white matter, the connective tissue, is grown in that the signals can process fast enough. So they will hear you saying, "Don't I'm not a threat." They will, but they won't register it. Yeah. It won't catch in time because they don't have the impulse control. The impulse is still going to override that.
Also, the critical thinking, the judgment skills. Also, the sort of like, if you're younger, you're easily more intimidated by the older, more experienced. And it goes back to like talking about the military, like why 18, 20-year-old kids make the best soldiers, because you can get them to do whatever you want. They're much easier to manipulate.
More easy to manipulate.
I mean, the physical thing is true. Like, the younger you are, you're more likely in better shape than a guy that's in his 30s and 40s, just by the nature of age. But at the same time, the psychological damage is usually worse. Like, when they actually done studies, like PTSD veterans, like older veterans tend to have better, or I hate to say better, but the symptoms are far worse with younger veterans, guys that were like 18, 19, 20 years old, going to war. And the same battle, same situation, same experiences, but the symptoms and conditions are worse than older veterans, because the emotional, you're 25, 30, you're able to emotionally handle, not necessarily, again, your personality, but you're able to process it further. Like, that's why child soldiers tend to be just destroyed like, psychologically, because they can't emotionally handle it. It's just...
You're mentally and psychologically more resilient when you're older. Part of that is a matter of physical brain development. Part of it's a matter of experience and growth and maturity. You know, what you've learned by that point. Yeah. It definitely helps a lot to deal with those situations, and it does make it easier to de-escalate situations as well. But you can run into these situations where people are sort of strutting, beating their chests, and people often can't talk them down, because we as humans do recognize in each other often, not everyone to the same degree, but you can recognize differing levels of threat, differing levels of basic dominance, in the same way that so my two cats, Minerva and Socrates, will fight each other because they're actually evenly matched. They have an equivalent level of social dominance, and they feel the need to push each other to see what they can get away with, and one will win and the other one will win, and that just goes on for years. But neither of them will go for Moshe, because they both recognize in him that this is a greater threat, this is a stronger personality, this guy will mess me up.
So in a way, so these two similar, equal skill, experience opponents are basically battling each other for second place against Moshe, who's, by definition, the way they kind of organized it among the cats, is already at top. So they're fighting for basically to be underneath someone, but they also want something underneath them.
Right.
That's kind of what they're fighting. They're fighting for, essentially saying, you're beneath me, even though Moshe is like, you're beneath me.
And one of the fun things I think a lot of people miss in discussions of any of these kind of dances of dominance, these kind of like hierarchical struggles here, is that it's not necessarily a matter of brute force in many cases. Moshe has seldom had to do anything physical to any of the cats. He simply stares them down, and they cave. Right? They'll look at each other, and the second cat will simply flop down and show their belly. Like, I give up. Right? Whereas Minerva and Socrates actually come to physical blows. They will actually fight each other. The fact that Moshe never has to reflects the ability, I think, to recognize in other people that stronger will, right? That desire to dominate that exists there, and the ability to do it.
It's like saying some people, you just walk in the room. Like, some people can just walk in the room and you can feel the radiance of them.
Yeah,
and Moshe just like, and nothing compared to Moshe is like the cats. He walks in, they're like, they just know.
They know. Yeah, and you see this with humans too. We can pick this up. You know that there are certain people with a kind of presence to them, a certain gravitas. There's a kind of like a dignity or quiet power about certain people that they'll naturally, charisma. That within a room of people, they'll naturally look to this person, right? Yeah. For leadership, or they'll kind of like respect him, or like in an emergency when something happens, that's the person they turn to, or because you kind of expect that they're able to do it. And many of us are actually pretty good judges of character and can pick that out about people, even if it's not conscious. Yeah, for many people, it actually stays entirely unconscious. You just, in the right circumstances, you just know. Yeah. You recognize it in each other.
And sometimes, again, like I grew up in bars. I love going to the pub. And you sit down, because you BS with a guy, that you go BS with a guy at a bar. You talk about whatever, sports, the game, the music, whatever. Some guys you just know. Some guys are very good bullshitters, and you can't tell. But some guys you just know, because you just pick up key cues. Or for me, like, I may have a basic understanding of some stuff, and I could still, even if I don't know detail about this sport or this game or whatever, I can still kind of BS my way through it.
Right.
But other stuff, the guys, they can tell, they won't say anything, that, you're full of shit.
Yeah,
some people, or you walk in, the loud, "Hey man, what up?" And you just, this guy is bro material. Like, you could get the vibe off people. And there's some people, like, they just walk in their room, you're like, oh, yeah, I don't get anything good off this guy. But some people are attracted to that in a way, though.
They are, yeah. Many people still kind of fall in for that, or fall for that.
That mysteriousness,
there's something about the power of the bullshit artist that really plays to a lot of the basic psychology. On some level, humans really are herd animals anyway.
Yeah.
We do kind of like fall into a basic like social animal patterns, and we kind of like look for things. And I think it really has a lot to do with your own internal degree of
he gets me. He gets me. Like
you can kind of, some people themselves lacking their own real confidence will turn to other people who seem to project the confidence that they lack.
Yeah.
So oftentimes the weakest of men are attracted to other weak men who posture as strong men, who pretend to be more than they are, the ones who do thump their chest and rise to the top in the gang hierarchy that way, kind of like just like shouting other people down. That person may not be a particularly strong person themselves, but they project a kind of confidence that unconfident people respect.
Yeah. So it's kind of like the life of Brian.
It is, yeah. All right, so speaking then of that kind of overconfidence, the sort of strutting, the insistence that you are better than you actually are.
Yeah.
Let's think in terms here of applying these kind of hierarchies in business.
Yeah.
Right? How could we compare personalities like, say, the Donald Trumps versus any other kind of like business figures, kind of a businessman? Because here in Trump you have somebody who is constantly and self-consciously bragging about himself, which is the polite society version of thumping your chest and pulling a gun, kind of like showing off, the kind of like instead of a threat of physical violence, it's a threat of judicial violence. I will sue you,
or you're fired,
or you're fired. Yeah, I can attack you economically or through the courts or something.
I mean, in the way kind of like The Apprentice kind of reinforces that in a way. If you actually, I don't know if you ever watched the show, but the whole
I'm familiar with it. Yeah,
but you're fired. Mm-hmm. Like just that in of itself is kind of like
it's a power play.
It's reinforcing in a way. I mean, reinforcing that kind of like that Trump has the power to because they're all trying to become his apprentice, celebrity apprentice or his apprentice.
And there's a hierarchy involved in that.
And they're all fighting amongst each other.
Yeah, they're competing for position below him.
Yeah,
right.
And it's like you're looking at their the rats are all fighting for the scraps, and I have the big cheese right here.
And you get to then play the part of the powerful, dominant person who gets to choose among them and pick which rat gets the cheese and which one gets fired. Which one gets thrown.
Who really wants to be my number two?
Right. So how would we rate Trump's confidence himself, though? I mean, just is the way he's constantly projecting outwardly here then masking a kind of insecurity himself? I mean,
the thing is too, like watching his actual negotiation, pictures of him like Merkel or Macron or even Trudeau. Like Trudeau, honestly, he doesn't come off as this sort of like masculine. No offense to the Canadian Prime Minister, the Canucks all over the world, but he comes off that sort of nice guy. He doesn't come off as that ultra dominant, but
he's nice.
But Merkel, to me, is kind of like the German version of frickin' Thatcher, and that the Iron Lady kind of attitude. And there's some great footage from when he was meeting with her, where he's just and she's just.
Yeah, and I think I think his response to them is a little bit different. Trudeau does have a kind of quiet confidence to himself. I mean, he does look like he could handle himself in the right sort of situation here. And there are times when you can see Trump seeming almost to defer to him, but the fact that Trudeau is the same sex as him, that he's a fellow male, and that Trump can play him off as a bit more effeminate. He does yoga or something here. He then feels a need to kind of cut him down a bit, that he can kind of play into that. Where I don't think he really knows what to do with somebody like Merkel, right? Who is not a fellow male, and yet who clearly has a self-confidence in excess.
That iron to him. To me, she's the German Iron Lady.
His body language, I think, is very telling in those situations. Trump frequently sits down on the edge of the chair, sort of leaning forward a bit. He's in his knees with Merkel, and he's looking down, refusing to make eye contact. Or you can see this in meetings, and this is true even in Canada. He'll sit with his arms crossed.
Which is it's hostility. He's already on a hostile mode.
It's hostile. It's tuning you out.
It's also you're kind of you're kind of not in the moment. You're kind of not that focused on it.
Yeah, it takes away a little bit of your concentration. It takes you a bit out of it because you're less likely to take in and process the other arguments. But there is also a physical defensive posture in this. The crossing of the arms here, you're protecting, your chest. There's a self-defensive sort of posture here. You're withdrawing into yourself rather than a more open posture here. If you're presenting yourself here openly, you do not feel threatened in that circumstance.
Yeah. I remember there was actually a great photo with him and Macron, the French president, where they met the G7. They're shaking it, but Trump, he's almost got this Macron goes in, and look at the picture. He's kind of grabbing it, and Trump is just...
Yeah, his hand is more flat and open, But there's a bit of overcompensation there, too. I think that Macron is intentionally trying to humiliate Trump as a way of... I think some people like Macron can see that Trump draws his own sort of self-confidence from the way from the false confidence he projects to other people.
The spin mastering.
Yeah, exactly. The sense that I'm the tough guy. Look how tough I am. And Macron's like, well, I'll show the world how tough you really are. And there's a kind of immaturity involved in his actions, but
it proves the point, though.
But he's calling his bluff. He's basically showing, Trump.
He's playing the good diplomatic game.
Yeah, Trump isn't as tough as he seems.
Yeah.
I think actually Merkel's approach in many ways is even more humiliating, although it's less obvious to Trump because of the whole lizard brain, physicality of Macron. But the fact that Merkel can look him in the eyes and Trump will look down and away, that he can't face her.
Yeah.
Right. Or that he has to shut down and withdraw.
Do you think there's sort of a male like this woman this sort of male-female thing? Do you think that's maybe
part of it might be the way he can't process a strong female, but I think it's really strength in general that he responds to, and you can see this in the way he responds to criticism in general from other businessmen or from other politicians. I mean, look at the kind of criticism he got from Bloomberg. I mean, here you have in somebody like Bloomberg, a person who actually was born relatively poor and worked his way up.
Owns a major media network.
Runs a major company there. Is worth God's many times what Trump is. I think Bloomberg is valued around $40 billion versus Trump claims 10, but the Wall Street Journal, for example, says that he's probably worth more $2 billion, and most of that in real estate. Yeah. It's a huge difference between the two of them.
It's hard assets, not actual per se accumulated wealth. And a lot of that actually came he inherited anyways because his dad still had
and there's a question there too. If you want to get back to this whole question of natural and unnatural hierarchies, I think one of the key things that stands out for me is that wealth and political power are frequently unnatural hierarchies. Sometimes political power, is one or the other. It depends. People can claw their way up in politics, but there's also a sense of entitlement. If you look at a Kennedy running for office is going to have a whole lot easier time than a poor person. Just coming out of nowhere with no name. There's a sense of entitlement that can come into politics as well. But in business, you can definitely see it. In personal wealth, you can see it. The person who has to work their way up and accumulates the wealth themselves, there's an almost meritocracy in business in that sense.
Yeah, but there's also the entitlement thing too. I would also, even besides inherited wealth or generational wealth, I would still say someone that quote unquote built their wealth, I would still say that sort of entitlement mentality, I think, could still play a role.
Oh, certainly.
Absolutely.
It still affects them.
I built it, you're not taking anything from me.
And people can definitely still be very greedy about that.
Yeah.
People can be very, the acquisitiveness involved in becoming rich in the first place often does play a part there regardless of how you got it.
Yeah.
You can, I don't know, contrast, say, an Ayn Rand sort of personality there, where the whole greed is good, Gordon Gekko, fictional character kind of ideal there, versus somebody who reaches a certain point and says, I've got enough, I don't need any more, and starts trying to give it away. Or
the legacy mentality kicks in.
Like Carnegie.
Yeah.
Right, you're trying to. Okay, I'm going to step aside from the company here. I'm going to start, doing charitable work. Yeah.
What was the social responsibility? I forgot the actual wording because he wrote a famous essay.
Oh, right.
I forgot the actual term he used, but he was like.
But there's a sense of feeling a certain social responsibility, a desire to give back after having profited in the first place off of people.
But at the same time, he started doing that right after he sold U.S. Steel.
And you can see that in people also that some people born rich also have a greater sense of social responsibility and act as philanthropists the whole time. But many people also simply born rich never really have to work for it in the first place and feel a desire to keep it.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger issue for me really is the question of a hierarchy of wealth in the first place. What you end up with if you don't, for example, have an estate tax, if you allow people to pass on billions of dollars to somebody else, then they may not have the drive to have gotten rich in the first place. So I think it goes beyond the whole questions of entitlement here and really gets back to this matter of like what it shows in the hierarchies in the first place.
Yeah.
The person clawing their way up, there is a meritocratic component in that. They became rich through their own
and
efforts.
And there's a pride aspect of that,
right.
too. Like,
yeah, they worked their way up to become rich in the first place, whereas the other person did not. Yeah. They may similarly be a hard worker, but they might also just kick back all the time, sipping Mai Tais, doing nothing.
Travel around the world.
Travel around the world, and they just got super rich. But once you have
professional
that wealth,
socialites.
Yeah, once you have that wealth, though, it does give you a certain amount of power. The person then born rich is able to sue people into silence, to basically get away with what they want. They can hire people to take care of things for them, and they don't really have to work their way up in the same way.
Yeah.
And I think that the estate tax was designed in the first place to prevent the creation of a kind of feudal aristocracy in the United States.
Instead of land-based, money-based.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, instead of just the ownership of land, but simply the assets themselves. If I have billions of dollars, right, and I just inherited billions of dollars, I have a high degree of power in our society, and therefore get to call the shots, regardless of whether or not I'm a good person or a hardworking person or a smart person or anything else.
And the other thing too, 2 points I'm making that, the notion like, who was it Leibniz that said, who made the famous quote regarding power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolute? Was that Leibniz or Spinoza? I forgot who.
I don't recall either.
But it was an 18th or 17th century.
Yeah, I think it's a 17th century figure as well. But yeah.
Yeah, but but there's a point though, like having that money, even if you are a quote unquote good person, it
does
corrupt
mess with you. Yeah.
And it's
harder to be a good person. The richer you are, the more powerful you are, the harder it is actually to be a good person.
Yeah.
Right? It rewards a kind of Machiavellian character trait.
And at the second point, though, I make a point. Besides the whole like sort of defense mechanism, when you have that money, and there's psychological studies point out that when you have that kind of money, you want to defend it. Like you take a little. But my other point on top of that actually is regarding the sort of cushioning aspect. Like, okay, you inherit all this money. Like let's say the complete economy crashes. Like, and you're talking people that had money, had hard asses, lost a lot of things. But if you have that ridiculous, incomprehensible amount of money, you have a fairly good. If you lose a chunk of it, you're still very well cushioned.
Right, and
I think to me that's feeds into the privilege thing, where you're like you can't really empathize. Like, oh, I mean, I'm still good. I mean, how come you? Even someone that may say had like 30 restaurants, they had a decent house, like, and they've lost it all in the 07-08 crisis, because a lot of fairly well-off people got fucked as well. But the super rich still, I mean, the whole Goldman Sachs, I mean, what's his name? Schwarzman, or the guy that was like one of the top guys for Goldman Sachs. Still kept his billions.
Yeah.
And he was good.
Yeah, in fact, a lot of people actually after the crashes still got rewarded with massive bonuses and whatnot when they managed to get the bailout. Yeah, they managed to negotiate a government bailout, so the company rewards them by giving them tons of extra cash there.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you could have given every American a couple of $1,000. I mean, that's not a lot of money, but that would actually do more for the overall economy.
Well, it certainly do more for the economy because there's more being spent. I think it makes a point there about overall about taxation policy in general. That yes, if you have somebody making $20,000 and somebody making $20 million a year, if you put them at the exact same tax rate, it's going to hurt the other person. The poor person more.
No matter you could even have the lowest bracket, it's still going to hurt them more.
If you were to double or triple the tax rate paid by the poor person for the wealthier person, it still cannot hurt them as much.
Yeah.
Because the person making $20,000 a year every dollar counts. Everything that gets paid in taxes affects what he can buy.
Yeah.
But if you already made $20 million, if you had to pay $5 million in taxes, $10 million in taxes, you still made $10 million.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, we're even talking, like, would you say making $100,000 a year is relatively good?
Yeah.
Versus $100 million. Let's say 5% tax overall. We're doing flat tax. So that the guy $100,000 from the feds loses $5,000. He has $95,000. I mean, simplistic, give or take state taxes, whatever. But for the base of the question,
right.
He has $95,000 left. Oh, that's still a good chunk of change. But the 5%, the guy who made $100 million still has $95 million, which is still.
It's made no difference at all to him. It doesn't touch him really.
Yeah, I mean,
his overall basis, and the problem there is the lower levels of taxation allow him to accumulate far more than he would have otherwise, which then sets that cash aside, and that brings up the questions again, things like an estate tax.
And also
what happens when he leaves behind billions of dollars to somebody else?
Yeah. The other thing too is I know
it takes money out of the economy.
Like the other thing too is I know, especially with a lot like maybe more right wing or like even libertarian like notions about like simplify the tax code, cut the tax code. We have a complicated tax code.
We do.
Compared to, and we actually, I forgot the actual number, but it's thousands of pay. You actually have to pay someone to do it, which is, to me, in and of itself, ridiculous.
It is.
But you go to, like, quote-unquote, more socialist or progressive countries, like the French tax code, I think, is not even 100 pages. You're talking, most of these quote-unquote socialist or liberal or progressive nations actually have far simpler tax codes.
Well, they certainly do.
But that benefits, if you have money, because you can, okay, I can get this cut, this discount. If I put money into this charity, I get tax rebate here.
The complex tax code only benefits the rich. It actually, it's a tax. I got to pay a couple $100 to do my taxes, and I'm not going to get anything back from it anyway. Whereas they're gonna pay a lot more to the complex tax attorneys and find all kinds of loopholes, and you end up paying almost nothing in taxes in the first place. The complex tax code only benefits the rich in that sense. One of the things that blows me away too in our country is almost unique in actually having people you have to consciously file a return in the first place. It doesn't simply
automatically do it.
Or the
federal government doesn't
it should be
do it.
completely automated. There's no reason to have to go through the process here of me having to go through all the records and pull the stuff in the first place. I mean, they catch you automatically many times anyway in automatic audits from things going. So it's not, they have the records already. Why are we doing the tax returns?
No, yeah.
All it does is
they want their money, but they don't want to send you back.
But the whole purpose there behind the whole tax returns and leaving it in our hands really is just to give the wealthy the opportunity to shift more money around and claim things differently.
See, for me, I would build the argument to and even if you do the tax cuts, because like the Bush tax cuts, the problem is too. Oh, they cut the tax cut. I mean, this is old news at the point, but spending still jacked up. I mean. I would make basic economic. If you're going to make tax cuts, by definition, you would have to lower spending overall. Right. And the problem, especially with the new defense budget, they're even jacking it up to another $700 billion.
Deficits have gone up, debt's going up. Yeah.
But they impose the tax cuts at the same time. It's like that goes back to Reagan too. And it's like you can't. I mean, I know the famous there's an argument you can't run the Fed. You can't just increase spending and just cut taxes overall. And even then, basic point, I would argue, if you're going to cut taxes, cut it for the far lower income brackets than the top income brackets. Or after a certain point, or even, because I think the cutoff line for the poverty bracket is still too low. If you live in California, man...
Especially, since it varies from state to state what the cost of living is.
So I would say, it would make more... If your argument is to stimulate more the economy or stimulate spending, or consumerism, lower the taxes on the lowest brackets. And then progressively lower, depending how further up the bracket, keep lowering it down.
If you give a tax cut to somebody with a lower income, they spend that money.
Yeah.
And that money goes into the economy, it stimulates the real economy, it's more things purchased from businesses, so it affects the retailers, that affects the manufacturers, everything else. It helps the entire economy.
Yeah.
Whereas if you give a tax cut to the wealthy, this whole idea that they're somehow job creators and whatnot, giving them tax cuts has never produced an increase in jobs. That's just not what they do with the extra money. If you give them an extra tax cut, they have less incentive to work. When taxes were higher on businesses, if you look back to where they were, say, under Kennedy, with Kennedy's cut there, it went down from the 90% down to 70%, something like that. A nice cut there, and that works out. But that tax cut, the tax rate there, was already more than twice what the lower income people could pay in. And having the higher tax rates encourages you to work harder to build your business up so that you can keep more money coming in. And you can also, even without it only at that level there in the 70s, if you want to push it up higher, where you had with Eisenhower, people complain about that, we can't take 90% of people's wealth. Well, it didn't happen. It very seldom happened. When you had the higher tax rates there, what people did was, that's actually where the beginning of our tax code getting so messy, though, is so there's an argument against it there, but what they did was they put in exceptions. So if you will get taxed at 90% unless you invest in your business, you invest in your workers. So if you gave your workers a raise, then you're paying less tax.
But also, what does investing in your business mean? That in of itself could mean...
And there's back when that happened, and this is one of the reasons that, again, we've changed too much for the original complicated tax code. When they had those kind of exceptions in the first place for that, it was for investment in the real economy in the U.S. When you ended the Bretton Woods system and we introduced capital flight under Nixon, when they allowed you to move cash overseas, if you give people a tax cut after those, that's in place. If you give people a tax cut when capital flight is impossible, then the only thing to do is reinvest it in the U.S.
Because it's like, I can't really do anything.
I can't just dump it in the Cayman Islands, and opening up a factory in China is not going to get me a tax cut. So while I can do it,
it's cheaper to do it here.
If I open my factory in China, I'm still going to pay the high tax rate.
Yeah,
you see how that works there.
Yeah, so it's like you might as well just stay here.
I might as well stay here, which means more workers, get paid well here. But if you allow unlimited capital flight the way things work now, and the cash can move anywhere, giving them tax cuts makes no sense at all. That just encourages them to move more of that to factory jobs overseas.
Even if they are spending, like the rich are spending, they're buying. And the way someone told me, the rich don't buy shit they have. They buy it because what am I going to do with this 10, 15, 20 years down the road? Their plans are either going to sell it, or they may buy, you're talking boats, planes.
Luxury goods, yeah.
But, that doesn't really... you might have to give workers for that particular factory, that particular town, or that construction company, that landscape company, but that overall doesn't really do much for everyone else. It doesn't really do much on the bigger plane. It's like...
They can't... The thing is, they simply cannot spend enough to make enough of a difference, where large amounts of smaller spending at a variety of companies there has a much larger stimulating effect on the economy as a whole.
When I leave here, I go to the gas station, pick up my coffee, my donut, I go pick my check up, I eat down there in LA or whatever, I go home, go see a movie, and I go to the supermarket, buy some beer, bring it to the house, cook some steaks.
You're interacting with a whole bunch of different things all at once, tons of small businesses, moving things around, whereas the wealthy basically do the same thing. They have to acquire food and transport, move from place to place. They're spending about the same kind of thing as you. A very small difference. They're going to buy a better donut or whatever. They're going to spend a little bit more for it, but they're
putting more money up front.
Tiny differences between them, and it's the same kind of businesses.
Yeah.
They can't. For the amount of extra cash they have, it's impossible in your day-to-day living to spend enough money to make a difference.
It's like back in the 80s when all the drug guys in Florida, they had all this cash. How many boats can I buy? How many houses can I buy? How many? Yeah. And after some point, it's how many shit how can I realistically buy? It's like.
And when you get into all these discussions here of progressive tax rates and trying to let's tax the rich more here,
fuck the rich kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a common argument there that people think that this is some kind of eat the rich, kind of you just hate wealth, you hate rich people, and people think that you're penalizing success, that you're going after the guy who opened up several pizzerias and built his business up as an immigrant or something and trying to do well.
And they're 2 or 3 generations got now 20, 30 pizzerias all around Manhattan. I mean,
you think that they're just going after the guy who built his business up, and that's not really what it's intended to do. The point of the progressive taxation is it's simply more responsible economics. It helps the overall economy grow faster, but it doesn't really stop that guy himself from being rich in the first place. Especially since most of the time you're talking about we are talking about the tax rates don't make a big difference, and an estate tax isn't about that guy at all. You're not penalizing him for his success. You're basically taxing the people who are inheriting free money.
The intent of the inheritance tax is not targeted necessarily for businessmen, but just guys that necessarily, or even millionaires per se. They're talking large sums of money, including hard assets or even financial gain. or
but it's always like
or bonds.
It's still, you're looking $5 million that are being passed on from there. So a couple of guys have to be leaving an estate worth more than $5 million to even qualify for it. So very few people fit into it in any way, in any event. But the question there really is never that you're after the rich, that you're penalizing the rich, that you're penalizing success. It's about preventing the development of an unearned aristocracy of wealth in the country on the one hand there. And two, you're actually encouraging a meritocracy, because if people inherit tons of cash and they can just plop it in a bank in the Caymans and buy extra boats and cruise around off Miami, they're not really contributing to the economy. They're not growing a business. They're not working hard themselves.
And the value system is not being developed amongst that culture.
Yeah, and they don't learn to work hard anyway because they've never had to.
Yeah, and also the sort of like entitlement privilege mentality.
Right. It feeds that. So in a sense, inheriting wealth is worse for them. It actually harms them psychologically as people, as well as harming the economy overall.
I mean, I would build the argument that like one does not actually develop or improve without struggle. Without some level of suffering.
Some level of struggle, some level of suffering. I mean, it builds character.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about like absolute, like hardcore like evil shit. But I'm talking like.
But having to work.
If you don't make mistakes, or you don't suffer, or you don't deal with it, there's a sort of it creates that sort of drive to be better. Mm-hmm. And like once you actually get to that point, you can say to yourself, I did that. I that pride, and for me, like, pride is actually. I'm not even talking like hubris or excessive pride, but like, I came to this level. Like, I can die peacefully saying, you know what, I actually overcame. My dad was a laborer, and now I own a successful restaurant chain. There's a certain pride in that, and I think like, you don't get that with inherited wealth.
You don't.
You can't.
Because the inherited wealth is an artificial hierarchy. The person who built the business themselves, who worked their way up the top, who worked hard to build that up, has earned the right to be rich. And accepting that kind of meritocracy makes a certain amount of sense to me. The person who has simply inherited a large amount of wealth and never had to work for it, did not have to work for it, and may not have the character to have accumulated it in the first place. And I think that's where people like Jordan Peterson dramatically misunderstand the role of hierarchies in the first place. Some kind of natural hierarchy, the dance of dominance between different individuals here, that makes sense. But if the field is unbalanced to begin with, if we walk in the room and you are already from day one, from birth, a billionaire, you don't have to work your way up. There may be no natural character that would give you that in the first place. You just got it.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too is
it's a birth lottery.
I mean, we're building the argument like what's the word I'm looking for? That sort of like self-madeness, or that sort of, which is a very common within the American mindset, or even within like
the Horatio Alger myth, the rags to riches story,
or like the sort of
working your way up, and we tend to like look up to people who do this.
And we look, like, my dad's the same kind of guy. It's like Oprah was born. Like my dad will explain this to me. Oprah was dirt poor poverty in Mississippi and became a full billionaire. I mean, like you can do it, and his mentality is like people don't reach that level because they're lazy. They don't want the drive.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, but it's still kind of hard to make the point. Yeah, there's janitors who become billionaires. They do happen. They do. But realistically, though,
it's not common.
But still, the mentality is like if you put your mind to 100%, you can do anything. Which to me is actually it's healthy in a way, but I think it's not. The way that the contemporary American discourse, or like that mentality, actually is not that healthy.
Part of it is a myth. In some ways, it is unhealthy because it's often a bit unrealistic, or it overlooks the fact that this is not going to occur to most people. But there is a certain you can respect, I think, and I really do respect that. And you often see this in the conservative person who favors this kind of idea that just hard work, just go to work every day. There's good character to that, and this is where honestly I would rather help the conservative argument by changing the systemic features to make it more likely that you succeed. If you do not tax the rich at a higher rate, and if you do not have an estate tax, you make it far harder for hard work to be rewarded with success. You make the meritocracy less robust. I think that if we were simply to change the approach there too, the super rich to allow for that ability.
And at the same time, going back to the notion, you're attacking success, you hate success. It's like
it's not success; it's a problem. Yeah.
I mean the point though, what you're referring to about the super rich, that sort of inherited wealth, that guy, and compared to the guy, like let's say who actually did became an immigrant, built a pizzeria, now has 30 of them across New York City. That guy still is not in the same bracket in terms of like the wealth rise. Well, necessarily wealth rise, but also even the culture. Like culturally, that guy, the nouveau riche like mentality, is still a real thing. I think that you walk in like, what the fuck is he doing here? And like,
even if the guy has a few $1 million, I don't think there's a problem with that because he's entitled to enjoy the rewards of success.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with people being wealthy and enjoying the rewards of success. I have a problem with the wealthy not paying enough into the economy to make it easier for other people to be successful, and I have a problem with the development of an inherited aristocracy of wealth that then also prevents other people from succeeding. I would like to empower ordinary business owners, ordinary people to be able to become rich in the first place themselves.
So at the same time, like people actually becoming billionaires doesn't really. You're talking like a couple $1 billion, or
if you've worked your way up, and that's fine. But when you die, there should be a very significant inheritance tax that takes that down.
Yep.
Your kid should inherit something. They should inherit some of the material stuff. The house, some of the wealth, but they shouldn't inherit
the
billions of dollars.
The company itself shouldn't be demolished.
Companies. Yeah, you can. I mean, if it's a private company, you can inherit a company and continue there. But simply passing billions of dollars from one generation to the next to the person who then did not earn it is not meritocratic. It's aristocratic.
Yeah, I mean,
and this country was founded in opposition to aristocracies.
But even the wealth itself is like not even necessarily hard asset based, anymore. It's actual like money based. Which, the money's tied to the hard assets, true of course. But like, I mean, because people inherited houses, people inherited shit. I mean, that's technically hard property, hard asset.
Right.
May not be worth shit.
Yeah,
or like bonds, investments, money stored up, or like stocks, mortgages, loans, like that shit does get inherited down. That and the thing is like compared to the old economic where it was more land based, property based, now it's more money based.
Ultimately, it doesn't really matter as much whether it is land or material assets or cash. If it has a certain amount of value, it does put you into a whole different category of power in society.
Yeah.
And inheriting power, I think, is very different from earning power.
Yeah.
Earning power is a natural hierarchy.
Yeah.
Inheriting power is an unnatural hierarchy and a social hierarchy.
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of people miss.
I mean, because the other thing too, I would also make a comparison. Like, do you play the lottery at all?
No.
So you don't pay the buck every week or whatever.
No. I'm not a gambler in that sense.
Okay, but the point is like they taxed at least half of it. Like let's say you won $300 million.
Oh sure, yeah.
Depending on how you take the payout, but if you take the full payout, you're going to lose at least half of that. Mm-hmm. Technically, you didn't earn it,
which makes sense. Yeah, you didn't earn that cash in the first place. Yeah. The lottery.
I would make the comparison to like not necessarily the guy that actually made the money. The grandfather, but the kids.
You were born, yeah.
I'm like, why is that? And most people I've talked about, I don't have a problem with them taking half the money. I still got $150 million.
Right.
I mean, dude, for me, if I won like $500,000, to me, that's still like, because I can't comprehend it.
It's still free money. Yeah,
it's still free money. But for me,
you've inherited some free cash there. So if that is cut down a bit, it helps the economy overall, and it does not actually stop you from being rich. So
no, yeah, I mean, but my thing though is like at the same time, like what? But people don't have a problem with taxing that amount out of lottery wins. But I'm like, why not apply it? Technically, though, that the grandson or the son of
what's difficult?
Old man Henderson, who actually made the money. Yeah. Like, to me, yeah, you could have the different argument regarding him. Different story, but the kids, they technically did not earn that money. They already had the silver spoon in their mouth.
Yeah, there's been some very effective arguments there trying to convince people that it actually affects them, calling the inheritance tax the death tax, when the I think it's like 0.3 people ever pay this. I mean, almost no one pays the inheritance tax. It really is for the super rich.
Because it's $5 million over.
And it makes sense if you're taxing the super rich. Right, I mean, most people are not passing on that much cash. Any road, I think that's about all the time we have
Yeah.
today. So you've been on, my little office hours channel. I'm Liam again. This is my friend
Connor.
Conor McGarry, and I'll see you all again next time.
Good.